My dad met Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the late 50s through a pastor friend, Reverend Larry Odom, who had been a classmate of Dr. King's at Morehouse College. They shared stories and hit it off so well that the next time Dr. King came to Los Angeles, he asked, "Where's Mansfield?" and then directed someone to go and get my dad. And just like that, they became fast friends. After that, if Dr. King was in Los Angeles, you can surely bet my dad was with him. In 1961, with the title of Executive Director of the Western Christian Leadership Conference, my dad officially became responsible for planning Dr. King's itinerary whenever he came to Los Angeles. This was during a time of great change in Los Angeles, and Dr. King was in great demand, and it meant going through my dad. Through his good friend, Ed Clayton, the co-founder of Jet Magazine, came another invaluable friendship.
And his wife was named Zanona Clayton, who later I was able to send them down to Atlanta, Georgia, to be the publicity director for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And that's why Mrs. Clayton today is in Atlanta, Georgia, and she never lets me forget it, and I never let her forget it.
Zernona would recall that Dr. King and Dad were like brothers. They were Martin and Mansfield in private, Dr. King and Reverend Collins in public. They would bust out laughing upon seeing each other, as if to say, "Boy, am I glad to see you," even if only a week had passed since they last saw one another. After events, they would eat together and go over plans for the next day. It was an exciting time. But as our phones were tapped, our house was watched, Dr. King's movements closely monitored, and people were making death threats, my dad was all too aware of the danger. But Dad was not afraid and was always a fearless man, like his father, H. Mansfield Collins. I drove Dr. King one day while I was in high school, and I admit I was thinking about my safety. My dad never feared for his own safety when he was with Martin.
One of the things that was always present with Martin Luther King, he knew he would be assassinated. He just knew that. And I remember we were at Temple Beth Israel out on Hollywood Boulevard. And Wyatt Walker said, "Mansfield, you walk in the front of him." And I walk in the back. I said, "Why should I walk in the front?" He said, "So you can get the first bullet." So that was always a part of what it was.
Dr. King spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, not just for protest and advocacy, but raising money for the civil rights movement through parties at the homes of top Hollywood celebrities, as well as gala Hollywood premieres and rallies like the massive LA Freedom Rally, the largest civil rights rally held on the West Coast. A similar rally was held at the Coliseum, and it taught him a very powerful lesson.
I learned from that. After the burning of the bus at Anderson, and I learned from that something. When I put Martin in the Coliseum, that was, 6 months later maybe, but there wasn't any immediate urgency. We didn't have the burning of the bus at Anderson, we didn't have the march and anything, and about 25,000 people came out to the Coliseum, and I learned a lesson. The only way you're going to pack a place like the Coliseum is when something is hot, when something has happened. And I learned that lesson. I said I'd never do that again.
Dr. King was Martin to my dad. They were truly soulmates. On September 23, the day my dad passed away, Martin was probably saying, "Mansfield, you sure took long enough down there. Now get up here with the rest of us and your family."